Hi everybody! 大家好. I welcome you to Jade Palace Yamingo. My name is Yaya. A fairy tale turns into a tragedy. What happened? So, let's get started. Wei Zifu has been empress for 38 years, making her the second longest reigning empress in Chinese history. Having been a servant girl before, her life felt like a real-life Cinderella story. However, sometimes fairy tales don't always end with a happily ever after. She was the second wife and empress of Emperor Han Wudi of the Western Han Dynasty. While she held the title of empress for 38 years, her story does not end happily. What was her downfall and what led to it? By the end of her reign, Wei Zifu's beauty had begun to fade. As it does with age, the emperor was no longer attracted to her. But that doesn't mean he didn't respect her. Even though she was no longer favored by him, he still trusted her to govern palace affairs. There was talks of how the emperor didn't think that the crown prince, Liu Zhi, would be a good emperor due to his soft nature, especially since another consort finally bore him another son. While the emperor did reassure them of their position, the seeds of doubt had already been sown. When Emperor Han Wudi got older, he got more and more paranoid, especially the possibility of witchcraft being used in his court or against him. Of course, people being people took advantage of his paranoia. They started falsely accusing each other of using witchcraft. It went out of hand as a large number of people, many being high officials and their families, were being accused. Not only would they be executed, but usually their whole clan as well. These mass persecutions and succession struggles erupted into a major catastrophe. Unfortunately, Empress Wei Zifu, despite her high status, wouldn't be safe. Even she would fall victim to the greed of power-hungry individuals. An official named Jia Chong had a falling out with the empress and crown prince before. He would take the opportunity to use the witchcraft persecutions to his advantage. And he wasn't the only one. Even though Crown Prince Liu Zhi was very kind and intelligent, many didn't want him to become emperor. They had planned to support other princes that they thought would be easier to control and bend to their demands. After the death of prominent and powerful Wei family members like Wei Qing and Huo Qibing, the court plotted to frame the prince. First, Jia Chong accused Wei Zifu's daughters, the princesses, of witchcraft. They were found guilty and executed. Actually, they accused many of the empresses and crown prince's family members who were also put to death. With the execution of his sisters, uncles, and cousins, this removed all of the crown prince's political allies in court. They were basically removing his supports one by one and backing him into a corner. Eventually, Jia Chong had the audacity to accuse the empress and the crown prince, even going as far to say that he found overwhelming evidence in the crown prince's palace. The crown prince was shocked and consulted his closest advisors. They even brought up the possibility that the emperor was already dead and someone was covering up the fact to use to their advantage. You may think that's strange, but that's happened before in history. Then they told him he needed to start a rebellion to bring down the villains behind the plot. The crown prince was reluctant and he wanted to actually see his father face to face to explain himself. However, he got word that Jia Chong and his people were already on their way to report to the emperor. He relented and took his advisor's advice. He then tricked Jia Chong and his men and managed to capture them, all except one. While he publicly executed the ones that were captured, the one who got away managed to get to the emperor and falsely report that the crown prince had started a rebellion. The thing is, he didn't actually revolt. He wasn't trying to assassinate the emperor in order to attain the crown, but he still didn't have the emperor's authorization to rally troops. Not a good look, but what can you do? What was Wei Zifu's ultimate downfall in the end, when placed in a difficult position? Her son or her husband? She decided to help her son and support his revolt, a decision that would ultimately cost her her life. When the emperor caught wind of what was going on, he initially refused to believe that his son actually rebelled against him. Instead, he sent a messenger, a lowly eunuch, to get to the bottom of the situation. However, when the eunuch reached the capital, he was too cowardly to enter, and instead returned without completing his mission. But he couldn't return telling the emperor that he was too scared. Instead, to save himself, he falsely reported to the emperor that he couldn't enter the capital because the crown prince was trying to kill him. Of course, this angered the emperor, especially since he gave the crown prince the benefit of the doubt. But now he believed that his beloved son was trying to take his life. Emperor Han Wudi sent his troops to stop the prince, and succeeded, with no possible way to survive. The prince hung himself and committed suicide. His wives, concubines, children, and grandchildren were all put to death. Only an infant grandson would survive. As a result, the emperor called for the empress's official seal and ribbon to be confiscated. While she had not yet been deposed nor publicly punished, Wei Zifu committed suicide that day, ending her reign as empress. She would be buried in a small coffin off an avenue outside the city gates. Sadly, the emperor would come to regret this, especially when evidence of their innocence would come to light. But it was too late. Emperor Han Wudi was a prideful man, so he didn't publicly pardon his wife and son, but he did secretly investigate what had happened. When he found out who was responsible, he had them all executed. This included Jia Chong's entire clan, the original false messenger, and any official who had benefited from tracking down the crown prince. To express his regret of basically causing his son's death, he rectified the ideals that the prince had supported. The emperor also built the Palace of Sun Grieving and Platform of Longing for Return to officially clear his son's name and reputation. But still, his regret couldn't bring the dead back to life. He had lost his wife, son, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. But in the end, she did win, in her own way. While her son would not become the next emperor, it would be her bloodline that would return and continue as emperors after. Remember that infant that survived? That was her son's grandson, Liu Bingyi, meaning that he was Wei Zifu's great-grandson, also known as Emperor Xuan of the Han Dynasty. He managed to survive through the help of many kind people and was brought back to rule as emperor when a suitable heir couldn't be found after the last emperor's passing. 18 years after her death, when Emperor Liu Bingyi finally took the throne, he officially pardoned her name and rebuilt her a mausoleum. He even gave her a new posthumous title, Wei Sihou, which translates to Wei, the thoughtful empress. Finally, Empress Wei Zifu was given the recognition she deserved, even if it came over a decade after her death. Her tomb was one of the few Han Dynasty tombs that escaped looting and desecration from tomb robbers. This was due to its remote location and relative humbleness. It wasn't super extravagant, so it stayed off people's radars. Even in the wake of tragedy, Empress Wei Zifu was still praised by official records as being modest, decent, and kind, and would be continued to known as such throughout Chinese history. When placed with a difficult choice, she was decisive and brave when her son was framed. after losing her husband's trust, whom she had been married to for 50 years, she still behaved calmly and with dignity. No matter how her life started, as a servant, as a performer, or as an empress, Wei Zifu was the epitome of a strong woman, facing down any adversaries in her path with a kind heart. I have a Teespring if you'd like to support the channel. I have a lot of super cute designs that I'm really proud of, so please check it out if you can. Link is in the description below. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Wei Zifu's story was a true tragedy? Leave a comment down below because I would like to know. You can also let me know what topics you'd like to see me cover in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to Jade Palace Yamingong. I would very much appreciate it. And until next time, 再见了，拜拜。